Welcome to North Park Huron today. It is so good to see you. Super, super good to be with you today, and really nice to be together again. It's also really nice to be inside in a little bit of air conditioning this morning.
It is indeed, for sure.
Yeah, it's been a really hot week this week in southwestern Ontario. So what I want you to do is put it in the chat. What have you done this week to stay cool in the temperatures? We had a really great plan I can't say we, I have to say somebody else, had a really great plan 2 years ago, and we bought a pool, and it's been amazing. So we've been spending some very close time with our floaties in the water this week. It's been really great.
I have bonded with my unicorn floaty, and I can't put a picture of it on today's telecast because it might not be suitable for the Sunday morning audience, but I'll just let your mind wander. It's amazing. Me and the unicorn, we have bonded. So put it in the chat. Love to know. Maybe you've got a favorite ice cream joint or something like that you've been hitting this week. We'd love to know. Let us know so we can all take advantage of that. So last week we discovered that there's so many competitive people around the whole North Park Huron environment.
There is.
Because we did a trivia thing last week, and people just started going crazy in the chat, competing against each other. And so I thought, all right, this is the thing. So we're not going to do trivia every week, but we are going to do it this week because it was just too fun to not do again. So here it goes. Gather your family around and stuff. We're going to do this again this week. And so the trivia question this week is around temperature and different places in Canada. So here it goes. It's a multiple choice piece, and take your best guess. Don't Google it because we know if you Google it, we can tell. We have very cool Google-driven devices all over the world. We can see if well, obviously that's not true. We can't see you, but Jesus can, and He knows if you're Googling it. So don't take your best educated guess at this. And maybe you don't even need to guess. Maybe you just know. So where was the hottest temperature in Canada ever recorded? There it is. So
I'm going to guess it's not Newfoundland.
Hey, you don't know that for sure. Right. So where was the hottest temperature ever recorded? Was it Belleville, Ontario? Was it Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan? Was it Acadia Valley, Alberta? Or St. Anthony, Newfoundland? So the four choices: Belleville, Ontario, Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan, Acadia Valley, Alberta, or St. Anthony, Newfoundland. So there you go. Put it in the chat. Guess what you think it is. And the one that you think might not be the one. So don't judge too quick. And don't Google it because we're watching you. So, Yvonne, as the people are putting their thing in the chat, Belleville, Yellowgrass, Acadia Valley, or St. Anthony, Newfoundland?
Well, I'm going to rule out one right away because I got married in St. Anthony, Newfoundland in the May 24th weekend. And there's actual icebergs in the background, which is beautiful.
It can still get hot there.
It can.
16 degrees Celsius.
I'm going to go Belleville, Ontario.
All right, Belleville, Ontario. So let's do it. I see lots of stuff coming in the chat. So here it goes. If you guessed Belleville, Ontario, you guessed incorrectly.
Oh, he loves when he's right.
Oh, yes. Only happens once, every 4 years. If you guessed Acadia Valley, Alberta, you didn't guess correctly. If you guessed St. Anthony, Newfoundland, you're wrong. I was born there. It only gets to 16 degrees Celsius on the hottest of days. So that's not it. But if you guessed Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan, that will be the cooker place. 45 degrees Celsius was the hottest temperature ever recorded in Canada, and it was recorded there, Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan. So if you're looking for some heat and you're looking for a good place to go this summer on Cross Canada Travels, Yellowgrass, Saskatchewan is waiting for you, and tell them that Shane and Yvonne sent you. So there you go.
Excellent. So now that we have learned all about Canada's hotspots, we're going to jump back into our series on Renew. And this morning, Madison is going to be leading us and teaching us today. And I have a little inside information that if you have some sparring gear, put it on and you'll be really ready for the sermon. And you'll learn more about that shortly.
Yes, you will. So get that sparring gear on. She's going to be talking about the Rejoice principle. It's going to rock your world. So get ready for it. We're going there in a few minutes, but let's jump in right now. It's time for church.
put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love.
Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness, failures and flaws. Lord, you see them all. You still call me friend.
'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again.
Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain moved. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.
And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes
stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. And almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I'll lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And oh God, the battle belongs to you.
So a while ago, I started looking for a gym to get a membership with, but not just any gym, one that had some solid fitness classes. It's my go-to form of fitness. So I researched quite a few in town, and I compared prices, and I was checking out their schedule of classes that they offer. But more specifically than that, I really wanted a boxing class. So I did some cardio kickboxing a lot when I was doing my undergrad, and it was by far my favorite class. So I was bound and determined to find a gym that offered lots of classes, but had a boxing class at a time that also would work for my schedule. And I found one. So I got a membership with them, and that first Saturday morning, I rolled in the class early, totally unsure of what to expect, but ready for anything. And there were a few people that were there early too, thankfully, and I watched as they kind of took the standing punching bags to the side and pulled them into a place in the room that would be their spot for the class. So I watched and followed their lead and did the same thing. And then the instructor also told me where to find some boxing gloves to use. So a lot of people had their own, but I was the newbie and needed to borrow some. And for the next hour, we jabbed and we crossed and we hooked and uppercut and we kicked. And we did the speed bag and we did so many burpees, it's not even funny. And I was dripping in sweat by the end, but also feeling very energized. And I knew a couple people from the class from attending classes earlier that week, so we got chatting afterwards, and they also affirmed that the boxing class was one of their favorites as well, and hoped that I enjoyed it enough to come back the week after. Well, I enjoyed it so much so that a couple days later, I found myself at Sport Check, and I was buying my own pair of gloves, because this was a class that I was going to be committed to. And every Saturday, I was there. I was sweating and punching every ounce of energy out of me. For me, going to that boxing class was never just about physical exercise, though that is a big reason as well. But it's also often been about the metaphorical act of releasing what happened in the week and just letting it all out there. So if there was frustration or discouragement or confusion from the week, I never wanted to let it kind of just sit and fester inside of me. So I fought, quite literally. And by the end, I would be super sweaty, but clear-headed based off of what had happened in the week. Sometimes the things that we face on the inside of us require a battle. And much of what we've talked about in this series of Renew needs us to put up the boxing gloves and to fight. If we passively sit back, then the thing going on inside of us can just take a swing and it's bound to win. And we can all agree that we would rather be on the winning team, right? Or maybe that's just the competitiveness in me talking, who knows? So even though I do love boxing classes, I'm definitely no boxer. But I do know that in any form of martial arts, they talk about keeping your guard up. So that means keeping your hands up, you're standing in a ready position where you're more able to steady yourself, and your level of focus is high. Because as soon as you lower your guard, whether that be mentally or physically, the opponent can easily come at you with one swoop and you're done. And it's all because you let your guard down. But with your guard up, you're ready and aware that there's a battle in front of you. And here's the reality I want to acknowledge first. We have to admit that there's a battle. And I'm not talking about the external circumstances that sometimes feel like they're trying to take us down. It's the inner battle we have to focus on. We can sometimes think that there isn't a battle inside of us and we can just point to something or someone else and blame them, and they're the ones causing us misery and they need to change. But if we do that, then we're avoiding the reality of what's going on inside of us. Or maybe you're someone, you have your guard up and you're just ready to fight, but you're attacking the wrong thing. Because we can become prone to facing our external world, thinking that that's where the root problem is. And if we could only just control the circumstances or control the people around us a bit more, and if we fight these things, we can just get it figured out. But really, that's not going to get us anywhere. So the posture of blame or the fight for control can keep us totally closed off to the realities of the battle within our own heart and mind. In these types of moments, you may think that your focal point is correct, which is the external circumstances, but really how we react in those moments reveals a lot about our internal world. And that's really where we should be facing instead. So if the battle we really want to be facing is on the inside, what would it look like to be battle ready? So here's the gift. When we choose to follow Jesus, we don't fight the battles alone. We have an incredible God who fights our battles with us and for us, and he hands us the best gloves to wear to win the battle. He gives us prayer and thankfulness. Prayer and thankfulness, two things that you probably would least expect would be the gifts that he gives us. So I'm going to take these off for a second. But there's a book in the New Testament called Philippians, and it was written by a guy named Paul, and he's kind of a big deal in the Bible. And he wrote about and lived out well the act of fighting battles with God using prayer and thankfulness. Now, the book of Philippians was written to the town of Philippi since those who had followed Jesus there were facing some pretty tough stuff, and Paul wanted to encourage them. But get this, Paul was in prison when he wrote them that letter. And he wasn't there because he committed a crime, but he was in prison simply because he was going around sharing with others about who Jesus was. So all of the people, of all people really, the people of Philippi should have been encouraging Paul, yet Paul seemed to actively put into practice what we talked about last week, which is that we have a choice about our perspective. And his perspective was shifted with prayer and thankfulness. And he indicates this in the letter when he says this. He said, "Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. And his peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus." So notice how he said those two things at the beginning. He said, pray about everything and thank him for all he has done. And did you catch the end? When what we experience through prayer and thankfulness is a guard around our hearts and our minds. So the guard is up thanks to what God has given us through prayer and thankfulness. Okay, let's break these two things down a bit. So we're going to punch it with thankfulness to start off. So there are many instances throughout the Bible that say it's important for us to be thankful. Even beyond the Bible, there are things in places that say it's important to be thankful. And it's really not just something to be like, oh yeah, like I should just say thanks because, the Bible told me so, or so-and-so told me so to be thankful. But more than that, God literally designed us for thankfulness. And neuroscience backs it up too. When we're thankful, our brains release chemicals called dopamine and serotonin, which are responsible for making us feel good. They're the happy chemicals, and we really like happy chemicals. So in contrast to thankfulness, just to kind of compare, fear and worry release a chemical called cortisol, and that induces the fight or flight response within us. So our body is reacting very differently. And if we stay in that state with cortisol primarily being released, it leads to chronic stress on the body, which isn't good. So everything going on inside of us changes depending on which posture we take. But when we're living in a place of thankfulness, we can experience the goodness of how God designed us to live. And honestly, we could just thank him for that right now. We can thank him for designing us to be thankful. And we can look back at Paul. He was able to live in prison and be in a frame of mind to encourage others because he was living in thankfulness for who God is and what God was doing in and around him. So his circumstances, it didn't matter. He was thankful despite what was going on in the external world because his internal world was focused on gratitude towards God. And that opportunity is offered to us as well. We're designed the exact same as Paul, where our perspective and inner state of being is impacted from a posture of thankfulness. There's another great verse in the Bible in the book of James, which is also in the New Testament, that says, "Every good and perfect gift comes from above." So every good thing, it's directly from God. So that sunrise, a gift from God. That moment when you experience an extra dose of patience in a tough circumstance, it's a gift from God. That cool interaction you have with a neighbor randomly, a gift from God. And on the list could go. And all the thanks can go right back to God. And when we are aware and notice these gifts, it changes our perspective, and it also changes literally what is going on inside of us. So in the chat right now, I would love for you to write 1 or 2 things that you're thankful for right now. We can do this in community and experience the gift of gratitude together. And I'll give you 2 of mine while you're typing in the chat. The first one for me is that I am abundantly thankful for the medical community and being able to get my vaccine this past week in an act of solidarity as we fight and get through this pandemic together. And secondly, I'm also thankful for our city of London, where when we experienced such tragedy this past week from an act of hate towards the Muslim community, that our city rallied together with support and grief, and I was honored that I could have attended the vigil and stand in the pain with our community. Now, these are 2 things I wish I didn't even have to consider to be thankful for. Wouldn't ever think to be in a pandemic or stand with people from a murder. But in the midst of it all, I hope to have eyes to see God's hand at work in people's hearts in and around me. So what about you? I hope you've written a few things in the chat. And as we do this together and also see the things that other people are thankful for, see if you feel a little bit of a perspective shift within you. Okay, so that's glove number 1 with thankfulness. And now we're going to punch it with prayer, which is the second glove that God hands us to fight these battles with. Dr. Caroline Leaf is a neuroscientist and has spent decades researching the mind-brain connection. And she's also a follower of Jesus. And through her research, she's discovered some profound things about the impact of prayer. And she wrote this, and this is directly quoted in the book that we are basing this series on by Craig Rochelle. This is what she writes. "It has been found that 12 minutes of daily focused prayer over an 8-week period can change the brain to such an extent that it can be measured on a brain scan. This type of prayer increases activity in brain areas associated with social interaction, compassion, and sensitivity to others. It also increases frontal lobe activity as focus and intentionality increase." That's what she says from her research. Now, those are some pretty sweet things to have. Compassion, sensitivity to others, focus, intentionality. They're all things that I hear people talk a lot about wanting more of. I even want more of those things. And what if the answer was less self-help books and less talking about it in circles and simply more prayer? More time connected to the God who displays all of those things in abundance. And if God can give us things like compassion, sensitivity to others, focus, and intentionality from 12 minutes of prayer a day, what more could God do through prayer? Now, prayer is one of those things that we can either just resort to when we want something, or it can be something that's just so daunting, like, where do I even begin type of thing. And no matter where you're at in your journey and understanding of prayer, rather than trying to figure things out on your own, know that God simply wants you to communicate with him and bring him into our battles with our lies and fears and worries. And maybe your first step is to tell God your worries and fears about praying. Maybe you're unsure of how God is going to respond, so you've just held back in talking with him. Or maybe you just want to convince him that you can do it yourself first, and if you can't figure it out, then he'll be plan Z at the very end. Or maybe for you, prayer is just this weird thing, like it feels like you're just kind of talking to yourself or talking to the air in front of you. And I want to encourage you with something today. Just tell him. Put it on the table and tell him honestly about your worries and fears with prayer. And so honestly that you might not even want to admit it to yourself. And don't wait until tomorrow, because even just in a 24-hour time, you can start to convince yourself that there's one more thing you need to figure out before you jump into praying. Or that one more thing will then lead to 99 more things, and you could have just spent that time figuring it all out with God. And that's the amazing thing about being in a relationship with him, is that he just wants us to share with him, like you would someone close in your life, and he just meets us directly where we're at. So my niece is a year and a half, and a little while ago, she noticed her older brother was having a moment of sadness. And she looked at her mom and simply said, "Pray." Now this kid, at a year and a half, with her childlike faith, knew that rather than trying to fix her older brother's sadness, they should simply invite God in and to just allow him to be present in that moment, and that he would provide what they all needed in that moment. I don't know about you, but I'm learning from her. So are there things that you need to pray about and invite God into? Things that you want to grow in? Things you notice about yourself that you need God to intervene in? Or things on the inside that you just desperately need healing from? And if you ever want someone to pray with you, we would love to do that with you at North Park Huron. So never hesitate to reach out, because we're in this with you. And as we share with God, we can allow the door to be open for him to draw near to us and to transform us and to renew us. And that can literally change everything. So it's time to stop letting the lies take the lead. It's time to stop fighting the wrong thing. And it's time to reposition back to God, to partner with him, to allow him to enter into the spaces he's so eager to go to bring you healing and freedom and renewal. And in the middle of it all, pick up our boxing gloves of thankfulness and prayer.
All right, so apparently Madison has boxing gloves and she knows how to use them.
Excellent.
New information. So,
great.
yeah, lots in there. So she talked about today fighting the fight with one glove of thankfulness and the other glove of prayer. And how do you use them together to fight the fight to win the battle going on in our mind? So lots to chew on there. And I'm assuming that would be a piece that most of us could enter into. We all have the things in our life. And how do we pivot into thankfulness and into prayer to kind of help get our way through that? So Yvonne, what were you thinking when Madison was talking about those two things today?
So when I was thinking that, I was thinking a little bit about you always draw on your own moments and own times in that. And one of the times that I remember that I can look back and be thankful for, but really had to pray my way through, was about 2 or 3 years into our marriage. We had found out we were pregnant for our first child. And so we had a miscarriage. And I can remember at the time, we had been already a year and a half trying to have a child. And so it was devastating at the time. And I really had to pray my way through that, to just figure that out and to go through it. But it was also a time where you could be really thankful because God did something great in our relationship. It really brought us close together and did a lot for us. So for me, it was a time that I was suffering a loss, but so thankful for what God did in the situation. And so it took a lot of prayer to go through it. And there was a lot of thankfulness afterwards of seeing God's hand in what he did for us in that.
Yeah, for sure. And so a tough situation, but when you fight with thankfulness and prayer, God will lead you through it. And so as I was thinking about Madison's talk today, she talked specifically about being thankful for some things. And she talked about being thankful for the medical community because she was able to get the vaccine, which we all need to be thankful for that.
Definitely.
And she also talked about being thankful for the city of London. And so I just want to take a moment because we don't know where you're watching this from, but we do want to just bring it around today to just put the spotlight for a moment on what's happened in our city over the course of the last week. And it's been a tough week in the city of London, a tough week on the Muslim community in the city of London. And if you haven't watched the national news or if you haven't seen it, there was a mass murder of 4 innocent Muslim folks who were just out for a Sunday evening stroll. And it was a most terrible, terrible thing
Yes.
to ever have happened in any city in Canada or anywhere in this world. And it's just caused so many of us just to stop and reflect on what it means to walk in the goodness of God, the common decency and love of each other, and just to respect people of all faiths, no matter where they're coming from, and no matter if we understand it or not.
Absolutely.
And so for Madison to just say, I'm thankful to live in a city like London where we will call out those things and call out hatred and stand against Islamophobia and stand against those things for the common good of our city. Boy, I'm telling you, she's not the only one thankful for that.
Absolutely.
Over the course of this week, we have just been humbled and saddened and brought to our knees, but also thankful just to be a part of this great city that will call those things out and stand together as a community of faith, no matter what that looks like. So a powerful moment indeed. And so maybe many of you didn't get an opportunity this week to be a part of the vigil that happened. And so I want to just take a moment just to have a 30-second silence, a moment of silence for those who were lost, for the young boy in the hospital, and just for the Muslim community across this city who are just trying to process what's happened and seek out their next steps as they move together as a community. So let's just take 30 seconds in silence as we remember that family and the Muslim community this week. So thankful that God could even give us an opportunity like this, just to join together, join our hearts, join our thoughts, join our prayers today in this way. So thankful for those opportunities for sure.
Yeah. And it was beautiful, the vigil, to see the community of London come together to support each other. And it was just beautiful to be able to watch that and to see our city come together to support everyone and just to be there. And it was a beautiful moment.
Something to be thankful for sure. So Yvonne, could you lead us in prayer as we get ready to wrap up today?
Father, we thank you for this place. We thank you for this city. And we thank you that we can come together as people from all walks of life and to support friends and family across this city. So Father, be with us today, be with us this week, and watch over each and every person. Wrap your arms around those who need you more than others and just love on them. And thank you again for this week, for this day, and all your blessings. And everyone out there said together,
Amen, amen, amen. So, friends, it's been good to be together again. So, just so you don't forget, this coming Tuesday, we've got the bonus feature footage. It's rolling out again, and you're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be another great one this coming Tuesday. Watch it, share it with someone. And as we wrap up right now, by all means, stick around for the chat. We're going to have 10 minutes just to kind of talk about our weeks and what's coming up, how we are going to stay cool this week, and whatever it is that you want to share with us, we're going to stick around on there. We'd love for you to do the same. So it's been a privilege, North Park. Can't wait to see you again next week right here at North Park Huron.